in the gym in our Performance HQ, and we're here with Rory, and we'd like to know a little bit more about your new role in Irish sailing.
Okay, well, my new role is called the technical director. Previously, I was the head coach. I was also coaching one of the Olympic campaigns. Um, Now I'm working a lot more across all of the campaigns and the pathway program as well.
Yeah.
I'm basically responsible for looking after the plans and the programming for the sailors and the coaches to see that they're the best possible to challenge world-class performance. And also what inputs go into it, how they're supported, how that looks out in the field, how it looks when they're at home here training, and making sure that that's what it needs to be. It's individualized where it needs to be, and it's on the cutting edge performance.
So we've got kind of now person almost looking from a bird's eye view at all the campaigns to kind of optimize performance everywhere.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. You've got a very good vantage point when you're right inside a campaign. There's an intensity to it, and you can see all the balls of the air. But there's a zoom out piece that do it to campaigns. Some of it's a debrief after a peak event at the end of a season, and you look at root cause to performance or non-performance, etc. And that speaks to your plan for the future.
Yeah.
But also you might be 19 years old and just finished school, and you're deep in training, you're tired all the time, but you and your helm or your crew, whoever, you need to zoom out and say, what does the next 6 years look like? What's in front of it? And okay, what are the facts to it with selection? How do I move up the ladder of support and progression, etc., etc.
Yeah. So in terms of that ladder of support and the next 6 years, can you tell us a bit about how someone goes from starting? So when they're 19 and they decide, I want to do an Olympic campaign or I want to go to high performance level, what's the pathway like? How do they get there? For example, how does a new 49er get to the level of where Rob and Sean are now?
Yeah, well, the first thing I'll say is a bit of honesty. It's harder than you think. You're going into an environment where everybody's trying to be at the edge of human performance. That's what an Olympics is.
Yeah.
And if it's not going to be harder than you think, I'd be very surprised. So there's certain aspects that you're going to look at that you need. You need equipment. You need funding for that.
Yeah.
You need coaching. And in those years, you might be doing an education piece as well. You might need to be able to figure out how that works. So we've got a very good relationship, say for example with UCD with their scholarship program and
The Ad Astra program.
yeah, that's the program. Yeah, and they allow flexibility for our guys, and myself and a couple of our coaches were qualified as exam adjudicators, and that might allow guys to do exams out in the field when they're racing during their programs. So it's an example how you try and make things like that work.
Yeah.
And in those early years, you also have to know that one, you got to become an athlete, because that's what's at the Olympics is athletes, and two, you got to be great at sailing your boat, so you got to spend a lot of time in the boat. Now there's much wider aspects as you go on in a campaign, but those are two things that take a lot of time. And if you can get that base when you're 19, 20, then it's very, very good. So we've got good data on the guys who've gone through these classes to medal or come forth, and the hours that they put in the gym, on the bike, in the boat. We can present it right in front of the guys and show what's to do in front of it.
So they've got to be prepared because they're signing up to something like 16 to up to 22 hours per week. And that might be on top of their college course or other stuff, life, family.
Yeah. It's when you're going into senior sailing, it's very high demand, and you don't start with that work capacity. You have to build it up, and that part is probably the hardest part of it, is to set that base. So you're getting yourself in for a lot of work, and then having a residual fatigue, and then recovering, and then going again, and figuring out your work recovery cycles, and learning to be an athlete. And quite frankly, you're quite different to the other people around you. If you're going to college, you've got very different demands, and you get to do an amazing sport and going on an adventure, rather than maybe going to as many parties, etc.
Yeah. So would you say there's an amount of time, like 2 to 3 years, where you're just kind of learning your new routine, becoming an athlete before you're campaigning and before you're at events and competing at events at a high level?
Yeah, and look at it. Yeah, it's probably about 2 to 3 years, maybe slightly longer with the 49er skiff. Um, and there's appropriate goals at those stages as well. There's under 21 World Championships, under 23 World Championships. So you're still racing, and as you become more experienced, you might start to trickle in introductions to racing at senior level to see what the level is and where that's at. So that's all programmed out appropriately to whereabouts at and what they're doing. But initially, it's a lot of work to become an athlete, and to learn to become at one with your boat, you got to spend a lot of time on the water, so it's quite a lot of hours.
Yeah, that's a good saying. I think you did it for an interview with Annalise, becoming at one with your boat and with your environment, a master of your environment, you called it.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So then kind of looking around, Paris is gone, and now our next kind of 4-year cycle is LA. What would be the big goal for Irish sailing for this base for the next 4 years?
You mean for the team?
Yeah.
Yeah, the team needs to, and what our vision is that we become more consistent at medaling and challenging for medals than we have been in the last cycle. So we did challenge for medals, and we challenged for a medal at the Olympics and 3 out of the last 4 Olympics. But to give yourself a good chance at the Olympic Games, you need to be consistently
Yeah.
medaling in that cycle. And that gives you the experience of winning and losing medals, and that other piece, that's it's like an icing on top of the cake. So you become quite good at closing out medals and challenging for them in the medal races. And you need to be at that level consistently to do it. And so the data and statistics show that. So for the senior guys, that's the big objective. At the same time, for our system to have repeatability, we got to keep one eye in the future.
Yeah.
We got to bring the younger guys up as well and help them. And there's a supportive piece of integration between the seniors and the younger guys. When the younger guys come, and they might have an opportunity to join a camp 1 or 2 times in the year here at HQ, say with a senior, they got to be on top of their game.
Yeah.
Um,
Sure. At the moment, they're all out in Villamora together, not training together, but they're doing their cycles together. Is that right?
Yeah, they'll be doing some pieces integrated. Yeah, and as you gain more experience, then you can be more prepared for that environment with the seniors. And on the senior side, they got to set example to the younger guys. They got to set the standards, and they got to be clear about the standard of their environment. And when the two pieces work well together, it's a very supportive thing, and it supports the senior programs as well, because there is some elements where you can't get everything you need from international partners. It needs to be you and your group with your coach.
And just when you say international partners, you mean when sailors train with other groups of athletes? So, for example, Eve might train with Denmark sometimes, and I think Robin Shawn trained with the Dutch. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So we're a small nation, and we'd pair up with another strong small nation. So you get a formation of a program where you've got reliable partners, and you've got strengths and skills that marry up, and you work together. But there's always going to be some points of divergence because you're chasing the same Olympic medals, and then if your fellow countryman can help you in certain points, then that's supportive, then you're in a much stronger position, much stronger position.
Like we have Ewan and Finn both going in the next 4-year cycle, both in the ILCA 7.
Exactly. Like the reality is it's a competitive environment. Groups forming in the background when they train. If you've got a critical mass of a couple of people under one coach, you get a bigger say in what's done in training. When you need to do specifics, say at home, and have your support structure around you with your strength and conditioning coach or your psych or wherever it is, or sleep in your own bed, you got someone else good to train with. There's a lot of auxiliary benefits there.
Yeah. And another exciting thing for Irish sailing at the moment, especially from my perspective, is that we have 3 female boats training at the moment in the 49er FX. So the 49er FX is a female version of the 49er. The dimensions are slightly smaller, am I right?
The rig is smaller, yeah, but the boat is the same. So 49er, it's 4.9 meters long. So the hulls are identical, but it's a smaller rig. So you don't need to be as heavy to sail it.
And did we have one in Rio? Am I right?
Yes, we did. It was Andrea Brewster and Saskia Tidy represent Ireland in Rio. So essentially, it's the female skiff boat category in the Olympic Games. So two-person dinghy with two female sailors, and it's just as fast as a bend downwind, arguably faster. You know, and it's exciting that category is there, and a lot of the best sailors are coming through it.
Do you hope that we will have 4 boats going to LA?
Yeah, that's a strategic goal for our sailing. So Sean Evans has done a great job starting up that squad with the FX and the senior Olympic coaches after the Olympic Games. They didn't take very much time off. They came and started working with those sailors here at the development level in the HQ while they're going to university with we called it the Pathfinder program, so they could find their path into the routines of becoming a good athlete, becoming a good sailor in the boat. So we're putting a lot into it to try and make sure we get an FX on the start line in 2028.
There's no new boats being added to the program for 2028, is there?
No, there isn't, and that's a good question because we're operating in the single-handed male, single-handed female, male skiff, female skiff.
Yeah.
And look, the reality is we don't have the funding, resource, personnel to go broader than that. We have to cut our cloth. So what we want to do that well. You know, we're a small country. We're going to have to be smarter than a big country, and we've got to cut our cloth to our size.
Yeah. So then what is the goal for 2025, and what is the first event for our senior athletes this year?
Okay, well, the goal for the senior guys, particularly the guys who are competing in the Olympics last year, is to challenge for medals at their peak events. So that's what they're preparing for. And the first event this year is, it's not a big event, but everybody will feel like it's important. It's the Villamora Grand Prix down in Villamora in Portugal. And the reason I remember as an athlete, you feel it's important because you finish in winter training and you're going to find out where you're at and how that's gone, you know. So it would be classed as a C-grade event, but, you know, you feel like there's quite a bit riding on it.
Do a lot of countries go to the event? Yeah.
I'll have over 100 boats in most of the fleets. It'll be very well represented, and you don't get many regattas in February, so it's a good starter and check-in. That's going to roll into the spring Grand Slam events. Yeah. And the Grand Slam's a new format from World Sailing, and they'd be classed as a bit more important. You want to perform at, but you're still testing how you go about some of your practices in racing. The first of those is Princess Sophia Trophy in Palma in April, and then that leads on to Semaine Olympique Francais in the air, and that gives you your platform to have your work-ons towards your peaks event later in the year. So,
and all 3 of those are full team events, so they are events that consist of both the Ilkas and the 49ers.
Generally, yeah. But for example, in the case of the Ilkas, you've got a World Championships coming up in May. Yeah. So you might cherry pick a bit, just depending on what your best build up to a major event is. So if you've got an early peak like that, it's a bit different. Then the 49ers, they've got their European Championships also close during the summer. That'll be in July, so they may take a look at those 2 events also, because they're very close together.
Okay, and will our younger sailors be aiming for any of those events, the 49 FXs?
It's probably early for them for the World Cups, but they will be in Villamora at the Grand Prix. You can sometimes go to those events to get an eye-opener as to what the level is. So that may be introduced, and often you can do that with a World Championships as well. But it's important that it's not results driven. You're there to learn and see what the level is and gain the experience and see what your next steps are.
Okay, I think that's all the questions we have for today. Thank you very much for your time, and best of luck for 2025.
Thank you very much. Looking forward to it.